The Oklahoma City Thunder are your NBA champion. They marched through the Western Conference, battling through the Grizzlies, fighting through the Denver Nuggets with defending champion and multiple MVP Nikola Jokic. They stormed through the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then we saw them on the biggest stage. ESPN presents the NBA Finals versus the Indiana Pacers. Now, I'm going to have a lot of controversial things to say here, and that's fine with me. I can no longer ignore the events that are happening before my very eyes. But first things first, they were the best team in the NBA this year, wire to wire. Even when the Cavaliers were winning some 30 games in a row, the Oklahoma City Thunder were quietly winning 10 games in a row, 15 games in a row, 10 games in a row again. And they had the best record in the NBA to prove it as well. They were the best team in the more overpowered conference. They had the MVP. However deservedly you think the free throw merchant known as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is of the MVP award, he is the voter's choice. They have a complete team. They made significant free agent moves, dumping a potential all-star in Josh Giddey to pick up the defensive 3-and-D specialist Alex Caruso. They signed Isaiah Hartenstein to an $87 million contract in the free agent period with their one free agent offseason that occurs when you're doing a rebuild like this. They have been rebuilding for years, collecting picks, and not only that, they've been getting unlucky in the lottery process with only a number 2 overall pick in Chet Holmgren. You look at some of the draft picks that they had, they traded away Derek Lively for Ousmane Dieng. I think they moved down one spot. They drafted Jalen Williams at 12. Chet Holmgren is the only other top 5 pick. Josh Giddey picked at number 6 was traded away. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't even drafted by them. He was drafted number 11 overall by the LA Clippers and then traded away infamously in the Paul George trade. All that is to say that the Oklahoma City Thunder should be a fan favorite, but the way that they play the sport of basketball is simply put a disgrace. And I don't care what thinking basketball, I don't care what b-ball breakdown is showing in their NBA gospel videos praising the NBA referees so that they can continue to cover the sport and get special exclusive interviews with NBA players. I don't give a damn about any of that. All I care about is the product that is on the screen today, and the product that the Oklahoma City Thunder are putting out, and more importantly, the NBA refs are allowing, is simply unacceptable. There is not an offensive drive by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that isn't an offensive foul. There is not a drive about 50% of the time by Jalen Williams that is not an offensive foul. There is not an Alex Caruso or Luguentz Dort defensive possession that is not a foul. There is not an Isaiah Hartenstein screen that isn't an offensive foul. And all of this is culminating in the unfortunate gray area of what is a foul in today's NBA rulebook. There's a future video to come about all the issues with what is a foul in today's NBA and the things that teams are getting away with, but the Oklahoma City Thunder have perfected exploiting the NBA rulebook. They will hammer you with elbows and shins and forearms and grabs every possession possible. And then as soon as they receive even marginal contact, they flop, they flail, even no contact whatsoever, and they'll go down on their own just so they can get that beautiful golden whistle from an NBA referee. And it's disgusting to watch. Nobody enjoys it, and it's tough because this is a small market team that went about rebuilding the right way. If anything, we should be more sympathetic to the Oklahoma City Thunder franchise because they were bombarded by the Kevin Durant leaving, by Russell Westbrook being the last remaining guy on the team. They've been loyal fans. They put on the shirts in the playoffs. They do all of the things that you want from an NBA franchise. But man, oh man, is the way they foul and beg for fouls simultaneously despicable. And none was more prevalent than Game 4 and Game 5 in the NBA Finals, especially when they've been clearly on the receiving end of almost every 50-50 call and every 70-30 call. They get about 3 calls to go the other way against them in a row, and then the fans chant, "Ref, you suck. Ref, you suck," like they haven't been benefited the entire fucking season. And now that this is no longer the Indiana Pacers problem of trying to defend without fouling, trying to play against a team that is consistently fouling without calling out the referees every fucking possession, this is now an Adam Silver problem. This product that you're putting out in today's game is just unacceptable. The gather step itself is already controversial enough. Now that you have somebody exploiting it so he can take a 4-step step back because half of the steps he's taking is a quote-unquote gather is troublesome. On top of that, you no longer call offensive push-off fouls because he's not extending fully his wrist, Well, if you elbow the shit out of somebody, like you're an MMA fighter, they go flying, but you didn't extend, it still is a push off. You're still receiving the same benefit as pushing off with your elbows and with your wrist. And I just don't see why we don't call this a foul, other than the only argument that I've been given is, oh, they used to do this before. MJ did this all the time. I don't give a fuck. I'm not talking about Michael Jordan. I'm talking about the product that's on the court today. Alex Caruso, I enjoyed him on the LA Lakers. I enjoyed him even more on the Bulls when he started to put things together. But his defensive ability is predicated on his ability to grab and yank every possession. None more prevalent than when he did it against Nikola Jokic. It was despicable defensive basketball that the refs were letting him get away with. You cannot hook, you cannot yank, you cannot pull the other player when you're on defense. And for some reason, he's allowed to do it multiple times a possession. He's allowed to hammer players' forearm and send the ball flying without a foul call. He's allowed to hook and use the other players as a sort of momentum, as a pillar to launch himself without any foul calls. I don't understand why the referees let him get away with this. Simultaneously, Luguentz Dort, one of my favorite players in the league, is downright dirty 50% of the time. He beats the shit out of the players that he's guarding, and that's fine. That's his role. The fundamental theory of economics is incentives. You show me the incentives, I'll show you the results. So I don't blame Alex Caruso for fouling every possession. I don't blame Isaiah Hartenstein setting an illegal screen every possession, holding the other player while going for a rebound, or how the entire Thunder team pushes in the back for every single rebound and gets away with it most of the time. I don't blame the Thunder. I don't blame Mark Dagnall's scheme. I blame the NBA for allowing this to happen. I blame the NBA for allowing the Thunder to get away with this all the way to the highest level, to winning an NBA championship. Because of the old saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. The Thunder are doing everything they can to gain an advantage. Similar to how the NBA is 3-point obsessed because 3 points are worth more than 2 points, fouling every possession gives you a menacing defense that's better than a team that doesn't foul every possession. It's simple mathematics, it's simple incentives. And until the NBA emphasizes you're not allowed to foul the other team every single possession, you're going to end up with games that look like this, with NBA Twitters that look like this. Your ratings are going to continue to diminish, and people are going to say, what the fuck is this that I'm watching? Why is this so corrupt? The only comparable thing I can see to this is what the NFL is doing with the Kansas City Chiefs. The NBA is on track to trying to replace LeBron James. They're trying with Jason Tatum, and they're trying with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. SGA has already won an MVP. He's far and away a top 5 player in the league, one of the best scorers in the league, and with a little bit of a benefit of a whistle, he is the best player in the league. Once LeBron James is no longer on the court, no longer being the number 1 player, no longer being the face of the league, the NBA needs to get younger. That is why SGA is going to step in and fill that role. It doesn't matter that Oklahoma City is a small market team. The NBA is big enough to where it doesn't really need the New York Knicks to be in the NBA Finals. It doesn't really need the Boston Celtics to be in the finals. It helps. Sure, that's why teams like LA are bought by Steve Ballmer for $18 billion or whatever. But the NBA is a player-driven league. The NBA just needs to elevate the right player. They thought it was Luka Doncic. They thought it was Jason Tatum. They found their guy in SGA, and they're going to support him all the way. And the most offensive part of SGA being a foul baiter, being a flopper, being a guy who falls down when he's the one initiating contact is that he doesn't need to do that. He's such a good player. He's smooth. He's always on balance. He's a tough shot maker. He's a clutch 3-point dagger shooter. He's got all the attributes of a Michael Jordan, Kobe-esque fadeaway shooter. He is a top 5 player in the league without the foul baiting, but he does it excessively to the chagrin of every single person who respects the sport. And that's what elevated him to being an NBA regular season MVP, a Western Conference MVP, an NBA champion, and the NBA Finals MVP. Is not his God-given abilities, but it's that plus the benefit of every single whistle, every single game. And that is frustrating. That is what the NBA fans don't want to see. And even that I don't mind, but this whole Oklahoma City Thunder team gets away with damn near murder. Meanwhile, on the other end, they shamelessly flop. They exploit basketball and they make it not a joy to watch. I talked about this a bit in the post on my Patreon, but when I'm watching NBA games, because I watch almost every single game throughout the regular season to cover the sport, there's a certain threshold of bullshittery by the referees to where I just turn off the game because you can't enjoy it because the referees are inserting themselves into a game. And it shouldn't be occurring in the playoffs like it did in that Knicks 76ers game where the refs basically stole a game from the Sixers and gave it to the Knicks. It especially shouldn't be happening in the NBA Finals where everybody is supposedly watching even though ratings are down. And yet, here we are. Now, I don't want to go into my conspiracy nut house, but we're just going to do it a little bit here at the end of the video. Game 4 was rigged. There's no other way to say it. When you bring in Scott Foster, the extender, you want the series to go 6 games. You want it to go 7 games. You don't want to see a 4-1 gentleman's sweep in the NBA Finals because it's not good for ratings. More games equals more money for the NBA. I get it. I understand the incentive of doing it. But I feel like in the year 2025, we care more about the credibility of a sport than having a fun, made-up 7-game series that should have happened. If Game 4 wasn't rigged, likely the Indiana Pacers go on to win that game. I know they had their chances to win the game even in spite of the officiating, but simply put, it's hard to win a basketball game when you're playing 8 versus 5. When you have the Oklahoma City Thunder battling you and the referees are now influenced, however you want to say it, rigged, cheated, so that you don't get the whistles. Let's say they called Game 4 even. Pacers go up 3-1. Even if the Pacers lose the next one like they did, they still come back and win Game 6 on their home court. Tyrese Halliburton doesn't rupture his Achilles in Game 7, which means he's healthy for next season and they can go on their championship defending run. This is the result of you rigging the NBA. More games, more injuries, Tyrese Halliburton gone, an entire fan base disconnected to their team next season, all because the NBA wanted to extend the series. And this is the repercussions of your actions. If you lie, if you cheat, if you force the NBA players to play more games, this is karma returning to collect. So this is no longer a Pacer problem. This is no longer a you or me problem. This is a problem with the NBA. This is a problem that Adam Silver needs to address, because even if all the basketball heads are saying, oh, this is illegal, you're legally allowed to elbow the shit out of your defender, you're legally allowed to take 8 steps. At the end of the day, the fans, the people that you are supposed to be catering to, your product is supposed to be targeted towards, are no longer enjoying the sport that you're presenting. You are the problem, not us. That's going to do it for this one. I know it was a little more controversial than normal. Let me know what your thoughts are, what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. Congratulations to the NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.